music at lovedreamingpeach.com.
Hello, my lovely peaches. Let's see if I should turn
Auto-generated captions may have typos.
Oh, that's bright. Let me turn that down. So I was just watching a video, some videos of Ali Weiss, and she has this very interesting theory that Melania is Trump's dom, and I find it pretty fascinating. But then she did a video talking about that she had an abortion at some point in the past because she got pregnant and she didn't want to be a mother at that time, and she didn't want to have a baby, and she wasn't ready, and so she had an abortion. And it got me thinking, because she was talking about how many women don't openly talk about having an abortion for a reason, like they didn't want to have the baby. So I never did have an abortion, but there were...
I would have an abortion because...
three, if not 4 times in my life. Well, there was 3 specific times when I was dating 3 different men, not at the same time. So let me go back. When I was 18 and 19, actually, I think I was involved with this guy. Actually, I think it was like I was from 18 to 21. Ugh, that makes me feel so sad for myself. My stomach is in knots thinking about that. Can that be true? No, I had to have just turned 19. Ugh, it's like hurting my stomach because there was this guy when I was like just turned 19. No, actually, no, wait. I was 19 when I met him. And then he was in my life until I was 21. And he was so I had been extremely traumatized as a child. I had been essayed. I had been abandoned. My ex...
By my biological mother.
So I am the ex-daughter of a sex worker. She's probably not a sex worker anymore, but who knows? I don't know. I haven't seen her in decades. I've been no contact for probably, 30, 40 some years. I mean, I did reach out to her via email about 15 years ago. No, wait, actually the last time I had reached out to her was within the last 5 years, like 5 years ago. And it was just a very painful email where I was asking her why she'd been a sex worker, why she did this shit right in front of us. Actually, I don't know if I asked her that, but I asked her about, the man that she had lied and said was my father, who wasn't my father, which she knew about, and he was the one who had essayed me. He was one of the ones. And she was like, yeah, well, I have no shame. It was just a job. And, yeah, that guy was so vindictive. Like, wow. Anyway, so needless to say, because of my extremely traumatic and abusive childhood, I had a lot of problems when it came to dating and finding healthy relationships. So fast forward back to when I was 19 through 21, I was dating this guy that I despised him, and he also kind of seemed to have despised me. And it occurred to me recently, actually, that, well, it wasn't only recently, like I realized a long time ago that, well, I couldn't stand him, and I thought he was disgusting, and he was vile, and, I mean, he was like a nice guy, but he was also really ugly, and, I mean, I shouldn't say really ugly, he was just so goofy, and just, like, not my type at all, and, I used to work at a restaurant, and I didn't have a car, and I would take the bus, and I would walk and stuff, so he would always, like, come there, and he would, like, be there and I would have to serve him. So he would like come every day. Like once he came the first time and he saw me, and then he was like, oh my God, he was like obsessed with me. And he would come every day, and then I would be waiting at the bus stop, and then he would come and like be like, you want to ride? And I was like, no. And then finally, you know, it's cold and shit, and I'm like, okay, fine, you know. And then after like 6 months of that, he wore me down, you know, and then we started dating, but I really didn't like him, and he was terrible. He was a horrible, abusive guy. So another side thing about it is that like I had reproductive issues almost my entire life, which I was able to heal them in my actually I was 35 when I had my first kid. I had gone to California and I found Eastern medicine and the Infertility Cure, which was a book by Randine Lewis, and she's an amazing doctor, and that book like literally cured me. But anyway, so I couldn't get pregnant for a long time, and that was like really the only thing that saved me. The only thing that saved me from ever having to go through an abortion was not the fact that I was abstinent, not the fact that I used protection every single time. I mean, I was on birth control for a little bit of time, but it really, well, for a little while I was using it to be on my period, but then it, like, my period still wasn't working out, so I just stopped doing that, and I wasn't taking it at all. And you know, when you're young and you're dumb and you're immature and you're traumatized and you're in an abusive relationship. So the whole point is that I knew for a fact at that point, like, if I were to somehow accidentally get pregnant by this guy, there is no way I would ever have this person's baby. I would never, ever, ever have a baby by that guy. He was so abusive. That would have destroyed my life and that child's life, okay? And when I really, truly realized that, I was like, I have to get out of this relationship. And I got out of the relationship. And I kind of had this, like, thing in my mind, like, you know, if I feel like if I were to get pregnant by a guy, I would have an abortion, that's probably a good sign that, like, I shouldn't date him. And that actually became, like, a thing in my mind. But then, you know, just because you have a thought and you, like, you're a good person and you want to do the right thing, but then there's, like, the fact that sometimes you're not healed. And you get involved with people who are extremely abusive, terrible people, but you care about them. Oh, I don't think I was saying that the whole way that guy that I couldn't stand, like, the way he got me was when he told me he was molested. It took me almost 20 years to recognize what it was that made that guy have a grip on me, where I, like, started to care about him, even though I had, like, found him reprehensible, like, just disgusting. He told me that, and my heart, you know, it just, like, opened up and swallowed it up, and I would learn through decades of introspective, self-reflective introspection, that one of my coping mechanisms of dealing with the fact that I had been SA'd and never dealt with it, an unseen, unhealed wound, was that I would be attracted to men that had been SA'd and not knowing it. Like, I was living my trauma through being with these men. And okay, and so fast forward, there was another guy that I got involved with who was terrible. He treated me so awful. He treated me like an HORE. He cheated on me left and right. Like, he was so terrible. I would never have had that guy's baby. And then there was the third guy, who was the last guy I ended up being with before my baby's daddy, who was, like, the only man I was like, I would love to have his children. I want his children. His children would be amazing. And that's whose kids I have. And we're not together anymore. We haven't been together since 2014. But the fact that I wanted to make this video to say, you know what, you never know why somebody is in a relationship with someone and why they may want to have an abortion, and why having an abortion would be like a life-saving thing, even if it's not medically necessary in the, you know, physical sense of medical. But if somebody is with a terribly abusive, horrific person who's abusing them all the time, and just think of what they would do to the child. Like, how dare you try to condemn somebody to a life of that misery and abuse because you're so self-righteous? Get over yourself.